Welcome to Proven Sustainable Conversations, a collection of thought-provoking talks with Indigenous and Maroon people and their supporters to realize and challenge our conscious and unconscious colonized thinking and behaviors. Each conversation, co-hosted by myself, Kelsey Green, and K2 Aladoa, explores individual and cultural beliefs and practices for more holistic, harmonious, resilient living amidst drastic environment changes, informed by those who have endured ongoing historical efforts of erasure.
Grand Rising, this is K2 Oladowa, and I'm going to open with a short quote from St. Lucian poet Derek Walcott. Break a vase, and the love that reassembles the fragments is stronger than the love which took its symmetry for granted when it was whole. Thank you, Derek. Thank you for that wonderful beginning to our conversation. And
that's a nice grounding for the day.
I thought so. And we are here today with Sister Sheryll Durrant, an urban farmer, educator, and food justice advocate with a Jamaican Maroon heritage. Mm-hmm. Sheryll, welcome to Proven Sustainable Conversation Series. It is so wonderful to have you here in the house with us today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
And just as an aside, in tracking you down, I had to track you down. And I asked my sister, who lives on Sheridan Avenue off the concourse,
very close there,
by the stadium, if she knew of you or knew of your work. And she didn't know you, but she knew about the garden off the concourse. Mm-hmm. And she shops there. And she went there and she met Sonny. And she left a message with Sonny. And by the time, before Sonny could get back to me, I had made connections with you. I think it was on LinkedIn, through LinkedIn. And we've been talking ever since.
Yes.
And I just really...
Actually, I think it was Facebook.
Was it Facebook? Yes.
You sent me a message on Facebook, and I was like, and I looked up, I think you had sent me the link for Proven Sustainability, and I'm like, this is interesting.
Yeah. When you took a look at Proven Sustainable, what popped for you? What stood out for you?
I thought it's a very corporate term. I thought it was like mission aligned. I was like, yes, this is like what I want to delve into. This is more like the people I want to be connected to because our works are similar. So I look for community where I feel like, yes, we are working towards a new paradigm where we look at the world as it is and says there's time for an evolutionary process. Where we are is not where we should be. We need to be thinking much more sustainably, much more lovingly about our community. And there are people who are beginning to do this deep work, and I want to be around those people.
Wow. Well, okay, that's enough. We can go home now. That is such a wonderful opening. You've been described as a Jamaican-born, Bronx bred community garden steward and activist who encourages Black people to get their hands in the soil.
Who said that?
You don't remember Earth? Was it Earthworks?
Oh, Earth Encounter.
Yes. That's what they said about you. I said, wow, that is a really powerful description. And in reading that description and researching your work, the statement that comes to mind for me is Maroon mindset. Mm-hmm. And Maroon mindset is a term that was adopted by one of Proven Sustainable's uh, uh, advisory group.
Mm-hmm.
And her her description of what Maroon mindset is that it's that not rebelliousness, but that resistance streak that allows for the individual to step out of the box that they've been put in, have been compliant with, have become conscious of, and are now able to work from outside that box to affect what's in that box.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen in your work, and I was listening to a clip this morning, you are a community builder. You build community, understanding that food ties us all together. And it's that work at um, Kelly Street Garden and at all the other institutes that you work and teach at that we want to delve into this morning. And we want to look at the mindset that brings you to that work. So going there into that mindset, talk about your youth in Jamaica.
Okay. Well, hmm, I want to be very sincere and truthful about my youth in Jamaica.
Okay.
And before I delve into that, when you were talking about food,
Mm-hmm.
I you are right. Food is that thing that builds really strong community. I say food is the gateway to all things justice. We start there. We need to know our food. We need to know how to grow our food. We need to know how nutritious our food is for our body. If we don't nourish our body, we can't do anything. If the nourishment we are receiving is not the right nourishment, then we can't do the right things. Growing up in Jamaica, my mom was a teacher. My father went to farm school in Jamaica, and for a while he was an extension officer. But I see both my parents as educators because most of their life was spent educating other people. I remember my father being in agriculture and then moving to the literacy program in Jamaica. He spent a lot of his time in the literacy program in Jamaica. My mother spent all of her life being a teacher. So I got that mindset from my parents. I love to read. I love to educate myself. I didn't think of myself as a good student. There are people that were much, much more brilliant than me, but I did like learning, and I still like learning. And I would say my growing up in Jamaica was a good one with my parents and with my brother. I grew up with my brother Sean. Um, we had a big backyard. We would grow food in the backyard. We would harvest food from the backyard. I remember the avocado trees, the mango trees, the lemon, the lime trees, and corn. My father would grow corn, and that's what I remember from my early time growing up. I remember going to the country to where my father is from, Hanover, where my mother is from, St. Anne, and most of the people that I knew there grew food. You know, but but also what I saw was that the people who grew your food were also some of the poorest people that grew your food. And growing up in Kingston, my idea of becoming successful was like, I want to go away. I want
Uh,
to get a better education. I want to escape this circle of what I see as poverty. I love food. I'm a foodie, but I didn't see growing up in Jamaica where there was a pathway to agriculture. And here's the irony: my first job was as a secretarial assistant at the Ministry of Agriculture. And and then I went to the College of Art, Science and Technology, which is now the University of Technology, and I transferred from there to CUNY and went to Baruch College, and I did my undergrad in business administration, international marketing. That's my background. Yeah.
International
And
market.
I spent the first major part of my working life working in marketing and business. But I would say that I had a very, very good childhood in Jamaica, a very rich childhood in Jamaica. I had many friends. I did have many friends. One of the things I loved to do was go to reggae concerts,
Uh,
me and my friends, I would travel to Reggae Sunsplash all the way in Montego Bay when I was young. I would go and see Third World, and hang out with my friends.
mhm.
So I had a really, really, I would say, I mean, of course, everything is not perfect, but my memories of my childhood was a good one.
So you had a
Yeah,
rich,
a rich, a rich
rich.
one in in Jamaica.
Okay, and from their time as a child in Jamaica, did you farm? Did you help your parents?
You're going to laugh. My mother always said I killed her plants. I had no interest in farming. I had interest in food, but I never grew anything. I remember my father would be growing stuff. I remember where we lived first, off Malines Road. I remember my father growing watermelon, and the watermelon plant would be spreading in the front of the yard. But me grow anything? No. I would watch people grow, but I would not be growing anything. I was not a green thumb, and I was not very good at taking care of plants. But I love to eat. I love food. And it is the food that we had growing in our backyard, like all the different mangoes. We had a lot of Julian mango trees, as I said before, avocado. And so I would harvest those. I would pick those. Your mom would send you out there to go get something from the lemon tree or get something from, the breadfruit tree or something like that. Yeah, that I could do, but to actually plant a seed and grow something, I don't have any memory of doing that for myself in Jamaica.
Okay.
No part of my education had anything to do with growing food, but I saw it in many members of my family. My mom has a cousin who is 90 years old, who is still farming in Jamaica. And,
Mm.
when, and I have a great picture of him because I can't believe that this 90-year-old man looks this amazing
Uh,
and still growing food. And when we visited him, he harvested stuff for us. I got Google peas from him. I got, and I took some of those seeds. I know they're not gonna flower here, but just to have those seeds and save those seeds for myself was a wonderful thing. It was just, now that I'm in farming, I was just like looking at him. I was like, wow, his mind is still sharp.
mhm.
He walks upright. He has this gait about him. He's a tall man and he has this gait about him. And I'm like, he is still farming. He loves farming. He loves being in the soil.
The connection to the land.
Yes, the connection to the land. And I'm like, wow, yeah, that's what I want to be when I'm 90 years old.
Hmm. That connection to the land, and that give and take with the soil and with what comes from the soil. That's
Hmm.
the green mindset. That's
Yes.
that's what that's what Nicole McIntosh, our advisory council member, is speaking about. That ability to stay connected to the earth and have the relationship that's necessary to walk upright and to be 90 and look like you're 70 and and be in full give and take with the earth. And that's what moving from marketing
Hmm.
in the toxic corporate arena to back to the earth in in Flatbush.
Started in Flatbush, yes,
Started in Flatbush in Brooklyn.
in Brooklyn.
How did that happen? How did that transition happen? Why what made you go from corporate citizen to Maroon mindset? Let's build community garden. What was that? What's that transition?
I don't think I deliberately sought out that transition. I think it found me. I was still working at this time. I was working for a university, and around 2008, the economy crashed, and people were losing their jobs. Um, Universities, private universities or institutions were all affected by the fallout in the economy. And this went on for 2 years because if people remember, when the Obama administration came in, people were still getting not only packages, but they were still getting unemployment for years beyond the time when they would get unemployment. And where I was working, they were laying off people or offering a package for people to to leave, and I, you know, didn't know whether I would take the package or not. I stayed for as long as I could because there was a cutoff point where you
Okay.
decided whether you took the package, and I started to think about what do I want to do with the rest of my life. I just
Mm.
like probably just turned around 40, early 40s, and I had a little son. My son was probably 6, 7 years old, and it was like I was never honestly fulfilled by that particular type of life,
Mm.
and I started to think, what if I took this package and parlayed that into doing something else? And I took the package.
Mm-hmm.
I took the package, I went on unemployment, and for the next 4 years while I lived in Flatbush, I just volunteered at community gardens. And it was and the volunteering at community gardens didn't just happen like that. My husband was in a coffee shop. He heard these women who had formed this organization called Sustainable Flatbush talking about if only talking about what they needed to build this grassroots organization. And one of the things they were looking for was a pro bono marketing person. And my husband said, he turned to them and said, I know somebody. And that and, that was me, and just like that, I got connected. He volunteered me for sustainable publishing. And when I found out what they were doing, I just was like, I didn't know of any grassroots. Maybe they were, but I was not connected to any grassroots organization that was doing work around urban gardens and farms, that was doing work around zero waste, that was doing work around renewable energy. And to me, I'm like, this is amazing. I want to be a part of this, pro bono or not. And
Wow.
and during when I met my husband, he was into healthy foods. So he was a member of the Park Slope Food Co-op, and he got me involved in the Park Slope Food Co-op. So these seeds were beginning to germinate, around reconnecting to food, reconnecting to healthy food. And I don't think that anything it was just happenstance. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think things happen for a reason. And once I got involved with these women, I just really enjoyed working with Sustainable Flatbush. I mean, they have their sunset now, but the work that they did while I was there, I just thought it was really stellar. I loved all those women. I loved what they stood for. And I love that they were bringing something to a community, which most people didn't think was important. So, I spent and actually I wasn't kind of attracted to the urban gardening part first. It was the renewable energy that I was
Oh.
attracted to. Yeah, like solar energy,
Mm-hmm.
retrofitting homes for energy efficiency. And then I visited one of the community gardens that they helped to build, because they would help folks in communities to steward and build out community gardens. And I just started volunteering with them. And from that, volunteering with the gardens that Sustainable Flatbush helped to develop, I began to learn about the whole community garden movement in New York City that had been around for decades that I was never connected to. And I started to visit them and I started to volunteer there. And, and from that, I started to do workshops to learn more about community gardening and learn more about urban farming. And then somebody said to me, there's a farm school in New York City, and I think you should go to that. And I didn't enroll in the Farm School NYC program initially. I wanted to learn about irrigation, and they had an irrigation class. And I signed up for the irrigation class, and then I learned that they had a whole program, 2 years and an apprenticeship, and I applied for this program, and I went through the entire program. I did my apprentice at one of the urban farms in the city, and I continued to just build my resume around this. And I started doing this like 2010. By 2014, when I graduated and done all of this work, I got connected to the International Rescue Committee. And they had a position in 2015 for a farm assistant. And I was in my 40s. I was like, farm assistant is great. I can work part-time and I can do the stuff that I like to do. And I met the program director. I got the job. I started, traveling from Flatbush to the South Bronx to do this work part-time. And the part-time just started to grow to be more than part-time for some reason. And I was kind of resistant to that because I liked the seasonal employment because in the winter, I didn't have to do anything. It was just my time.
Uh-huh.
And um, and then one day she said to me, you should live in the Bronx. Because, and she says, there's a position on Kelly Street that I think you should look into.
Huh.
And I looked into Kelly Street Garden and I applied for it because I could live on the block. It was like on a beautiful day. It's a 20-minute walk to the farm. And I applied for this position. I interviewed for this position 3 times because the person who I was interviewing with said, "Are you sure you want to leave your nice apartment in Brooklyn and move to the South Bronx?" But when I saw the garden and the potential of the garden, I'm like, yes,
Hmm.
it just spoke to me. This is what I want to do. I met the folks that were there and I was like, this is amazing. This is like right in along the line of the work that I'm doing. It's in the community. I live in the community. It's like I get up from my apartment. I would just walk to the garden. And if I want to, I can take the train. It's a 12-minute train ride to the New Roots Community Farm. I'm like, this is what I mean, live and work in your community. To me, that this was just everything that I was looking for. And that's how it began. And here I am,
And
2020
your
here.
journey into the life that you have now is an organic one,
Yes,
happened organically.
happened organically.
Yeah, and the work that you're doing is organic. You're working with organic substances. You're working with, it's an incredible journey that you have taken.
And actually I'm thinking like, it was a leap of faith to just like, I'm gonna go with this. This feels right. This feels good. I want to go with this.
You,
But every time I put my hand in the soil, it's like liberation. I feel good when I put my hand in the soil. I
Kel-
feel good when I share food with people.
Kelsey?
you mentioned, I mean, also tying to liberation, you mentioned that the part-time job started becoming a little bit more, and you really liked this notion of seasonal, and your what spoke to me about that was a deep thoughtfulness and mindfulness of the how you value and think about your time.
Mhm.
And I was wondering if you could just lean into speaking about that a little bit more, how you have reflected on and made choices, thinking about how you are spending your time, both when you were in, right, like maybe starting with that more corporate America marketing, the ways you were spending your days, and then how you've made that shift and thought about like what is your ideal way for spending your time up until that 90-year-old vision you have as an aspiration.
And it's been a slow journey because um, I've spent the majority of my adult life working in America.
Mm.
And the mindset of America is just work. And it is devoid of it. I don't care what anybody wants to say. What I see is we don't put credence, we don't put the importance on building community, building relationships. It's about the house and the mortgage and the car and the 2.5 kids. It's all about that individual nuclear family mindset. And it's something that I've been growingly coming to reject. And this evolution to thinking about my time is important, Kelsey, is still a journey because having spent 22 years in marketing,
Mm.
it's very hard to shake that off. But getting a taste of it working in doing the work that I was doing, like oh, during the winter, I don't have to grow anything. I can let the land stay fallow, plant some cover crops, have it rest, plan for the next season. You don't get that downtime in corporate America. You get 2 weeks vacation. I mean, some of the folks at IRC says, you have the best job. You're outside. I'm like, yeah, I recognize I have one of the best jobs to be out there. But as I also grow older, I realize that I am beginning to shelve things that this is not important to my spiritual well-being. This is not important to my health and wellness. I am not going to do this anymore. I've become much bolder in saying, no, this is not what I want to do. People have come to me and asked me to do marketing stuff. I said, I'm not interested in that. If it's not marketing for the work that I am doing, and I don't even call it marketing, I call it community building. For the work that I am doing, I am not interested, especially if it is for something that I don't even believe in. You know, I believe in this. This work that I do, I believe in. I believe it is very important. I believe it is like a framework for building a better society. So everything around my life is geared around that. And another thing that I think about as I get older is one of the reasons why I want to build a community and build it among people who I love, like, and admire, is because I want us to be able to take care of each other as we get old.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that is on my mind. I'm getting older all the time, and I'm like, who takes care of the elderly when they live alone? And this came to me especially during COVID, when we were doing food distribution. And part of the work that we did in food distribution is called last mile delivery, where somebody in the community knows somebody who is housebound and is food insecure, and they will literally walk with a bag of produce to that person's apartment to make sure that they got some fresh food. That was part of the work that we did. And I was like, nobody's taking care of these people. And we live on a block with lots of apartment buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's in isolation. I don't want to grow old like that. I don't want anybody in my circle to grow old like that. I know it's a hard ask, but it's like, how do we begin to change what it means to live in an urban society? How do we begin to change what it means to be community in an urban environment? Because everybody is alone in New York City, despite the fact that we live in crowded buildings. It's insane.
Yes.
And the thing that the community garden and urban farm does is that when the volunteers come together, when we all come together, we are in community and we love each other. I mean, we hate each other sometimes and there's always conflict, but that is what society is all about. But we share food together, there's camaraderie together. And I understand why people, they say, are you going to be at the farm today? Are you going to be at the garden today? Because I'm coming.
When you took the job, Kelsey, do you want to follow up with a question?
Did I go up it?
No, everything you said was perfect. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. When you took the job at Kelly Street,
Mm-hmm.
how would you define the community when you took the job, at the point that you took the job?
That I was an outsider. Because one of the questions that I asked was, isn't there anybody in the community that can do this job? And the buildings that the community garden is behind is affordable housing, and the developer is a developer of distress housing. We will not go into the inherent oppression of housing in New York. That is another pet peeve of mine. That's another interview. But it's this mindset that I felt a little, honestly, I felt a little like intimidated and unsure, because I'm like, we have this tendency, even if I'm a Black person, of helicoptering in outsiders into a community with the premise that we know what the community wants. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn, because let me tell you something, the community knows what they want. People in their own, and I learned that people in their own community know what they want. They just don't have the fancy degrees and the accreditation to be able to get the fancy jobs to do the work. And we don't need all of that to do some of the work that we have to do in deep community. So
how did you go about making those connections and establishing those relationships that allowed for the garden to develop?
Well, one of the things that I first did was we spent a lot of time just sitting in the garden and just looking at the space. And
Uh,
just, yeah, because people were not coming to the garden so people were coming to the garden, but you didn't have this deluge of people coming to the garden. And actually, in no community space that I have been connected to, do you have a deluge of people coming all the time. There's ebbs and flows. And then I just had to go out there and talk to people. One of the things, yeah, you have to be brave. You have to get to know the community. One of the things that my husband would do was make coffee and just sit on the stoop in the morning, just talk to people. And one of the things that I always like about New York and still do is stoop culture. People will just sit on their stoop and do nothing. And I would just go there and sit on the stoop and start to make friends, and talk to people. And then when we harvested from the garden, my husband will just, we'll take food up and was like, hey, try this greens, try that greens. And then one day somebody will say, hey, what about those greens that you have? And then we will say, now it's your time to come to the garden. We have been coming to you. Now it's your time to go. And we will have events and we'll have workshops and we will have workshops and events that speak to the community. We had a garden committee that was established prior to me coming to the garden, and we used that as a catalyst and a draw for other people to come to the garden. And we will ask, what is it that you want?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so people will talk about the health disparities in the community, and we built and what they would like to see happen. And we built a whole herbalism program around those disparities in the community. One of our community members is an artist. We built a whole program around her doing art workshops. The people in the community have talents. It's the popular education approach. Everybody is an expert in something, and you need to tap into those expertise and include it in what you are doing. Beyond the art and the apothecary, we will have a potluck. We have a free market. We don't sell any of our produce. We harvest from the market. We set up a market on site every Friday all through the season. As soon as we start setting up the market, people grab their bags and come and choose from the market. Lovely. That's one of my things. So food should be free. Why are we paying for food? Another interview. But we'll set up the market and people will come to the market and they will choose whatever produce that we have that day. It's to try and make it accessible. And what I noticed that changed over time with most people was like they know the garden is there, they welcome the garden, they understand the importance of the garden, and it is just like this respect for the space. Even if they don't come to the space at all, they know you're there. That's the garden. You respect the garden.
It's the community's garden.
It is the community's garden. And what the garden has done is attract people from not only the immediate community, but all over the Bronx that come to the space. So it's not just a community garden for the block anymore. It's like people come because the garden is open and we have open hours and can I come and volunteer here? Yes. As long as those gates are open, and the hours we post our hours, you just come down to the community garden and anybody can be a part of the community garden. It's the same at New Roots. The gate is open, anybody can come and volunteer. On Fridays, we have Harvest Fridays. When Sunny is there, come and harvest a share.
Okay, so there's 15 organizations that you're connected to. I don't know if it's 15, but it's a whole lot.
Yeah.
Start with Kelly Street and talk about the other connections that you have tied to your work at Kelly Street in building that collective mindset, that collective and Maroon mindset.
Local community organizations, yes. Schools. That's very, very important because some young people are very interested in this work. And if they get experience doing this work and they see how it's done, then there are opportunities for them. So there's one school in the community that we have worked with in the past called Fannie New Hamer Freedom High School.
Huh. Mm-hmm.
and we are hoping to work with them again this year. We have worked with Casita Maria in the past. We have worked with Banana Kelly. Banana Kelly owns a lot of the buildings. They do housing advocacy, so they are part owners of the developments that are on the block, and we're also responsible for the renovations of some of these buildings. So we have like a loose partnership with them. We work with IRC because just because I work with IRC, I make connections with IRC. So we partner a lot on work that we do. International Rescue Committee. They're the ones that operate the New Roots Community Farm. Mothers on the Move is a local organization in our community. They're a great organization. I love them. Who else? I said Casita Maria already. Gosh, I have to go look at my list.
Kelsey, another question?
Oh, Harvest Home Farmers Markets. We partnered with them in bringing having more access to locally grown foods at our market, because not only do we distribute the food that we grow at the market, but the farmers that they're connected to upstate that deliver food through the Nourish New York program also bring produce down to our market for aggregating with what we grow, so we can distribute more. We have a really good partnership with them, and there are lots of others, including grantors that grant us funds to be able to do our work. Yeah.
Kelsey?
Yeah, stemming from what you were just saying about the market, and food should be free, and that your markets are free markets. And again, our broader work, right, is on Indigenous and Maroon mindsets and worldviews. And right, the author Robin Kimmerer in their book Braiding Sweetgrass speaks to that free market right at the beginning, and this idea actually when especially like food or natural items are perceived as gifts, that there is not this notion of unlimited taking and distancing. So I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit with your market rationale.
That is so true. People have this notion that if you don't pay for something, people have this notion of scarcity. And the mindset of scarcity is why we are here now. What I see is when we have community around food where people are vested in the health of a community garden or a community farm, where they volunteer to upkeep the farm, people don't take more than what they want. I have seen that. It happens, but majority of folks will come and say, I'll take this, but I don't want that. They don't come to just take, especially if they know that this is what we do, this is what we have. But when we introduce the notion of scarcity, that it is scarce, that is where the mindset of I have to take as much as I can right now comes in. People who volunteer in the garden are stewards of the garden. When you see them harvest, it's like a day market. They harvest exactly what they need for that time. They don't overharvest because it will spoil. They don't overharvest because there is more to come back and get. Because if you care for a garden, it will come again. So if we switch or pivot our mindset to the notion that the earth delivers, if we take care of Mother Earth will take care of us. It's because we're not taking care of Mother Earth is why Mother Earth is not taking care of us. And we need to change that mindset. And when people see that that's the notion of the community work that we do, I don't worry about people taking too much. It doesn't come into the picture. You don't harvest those tomatoes, you know what happens to them? They drop off the tree and they rot. Because that's also that's why we have so much food waste, because we think there is scarcity, so therefore we don't give it away. We don't make sure that people have access to it. And then what happens when you can't give it away? It just goes into the waste. I can't even remember how many billions of pounds of food America wastes every year. 40? I don't know what the number is, but it's a lot. But if you open up a space and have a community have access to not only the beauty of the space, because people don't only come to the community garden to harvest food. There's a bench there they can sit and just be and enjoy the space. Just be, you know. They hear the birds, relax, talk with your friends.
So you've had the opportunity to witness the change in mindset of a community.
Absolutely, absolutely. And especially when people, when you are stewarding together, this would be an interesting conversation around what does it mean to own land versus what does it mean to steward land,
Mm,
because the land has always been here for us. No, we didn't pay for it. The evolution of the planet has been billions of years in the making. What gives us the right to own land and have put a dollar price on it? You know, I mean, when I think about people say that here my farm is my family's farm has been in our has been here for many generations, and I'm like, which Native American people did you steal it from to now say that
mm,
this land is in your family because somebody was here before,
mm.
and you had to have displaced them, or you just came and saw this land that you perceive that nobody's on. What about the animals that were there? And you just said, this is mine. Or some government said that this is mine. And then you put a price tag on it. And then you say it has been in your family for generations. Where did that mindset come from? How far back is that going? Who made that up? So some people, that's where the scarcity comes in because land is finite. It's just one planet. So you have and another person doesn't have.
Attention to
So,
that scarcity, attention to that mindset of
right.
scarcity,
Just
and
like, yeah,
pushing back against it. That's the maroon mindset.
yeah, because we all are here to take care of the planet. We all are here to steward the land. And, we are stewarding land, but in retrospect, it doesn't even belong to us. It belongs to the developer or it belongs to the parks department or somebody. And we are stewarding it for no cost to
Hmm.
them.
Hmm.
But who benefits from the value of the land? They do, and then they displace us when the area becomes gentrified for more development. It's a conundrum.
Is there any thought of owning the land,
I
having
don't,
land in the community as a
I,
community
I
trust?
don't see any pathway to that in New York. New York City is a different animal. I don't see any pathway to that because a lot of the land in New York is already owned by somebody.
Hmm.
So therefore it's a question of having a licensing agreement or a lease agreement to be able to steward the land. And most of the land that community gardens are on are either on city-owned property or whether it's the park department, the DOT, the MTA, or it's a private developer. And that's been New York. I don't know. I am not an expert at land ownership in New York, but what I know of the community gardens that I've steward and the network that I'm in, the land that we steward for growing food in the city or turning it into green spaces does not belong to us. We steward it for free. Most people steward it for free.
Okay. And so there's a political aspect to the work that you're doing. That's the political aspect right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, forming those relationships with the institutions and the government bodies and maintaining and shepherding and
Hmm.
stewarding those relationships
Yes, it's
as
very
the
important.
mindset of the community changes.
Yes, and that's why we now hear about communities thinking about land trusts within the city within the city to protect the land that they're on, to protect the housing that they're on. I mean, we don't hear about it for green spaces, but we do hear about it for housing trusts.
Okay, okay. Now, New Roots is is how does New Roots differ from Kelly Street Garden?
Well, the new route is Kelly Street is part of the affordable housing complex, and it's owned by a developer. New Route
Okay.
is on land owned by the Department of Transportation.
Ah,
Yeah. So we have two sites actually. We have a site on the Grand Concourse, and we have a site in Queens. And as you know, DOT is highways and roads and so forth, but they have a part of the DOT that is about greening spaces. So they will actively, if they have a green space, they will seek out from time
Mm.
to time. I know for us, a community like ours that has the capacity to steward and steward a space and turn it into a green space, like the New Roots Community Farm or New Roots Gardens in Queens. And I know also that the MTA might have a program like that, because I know some sites are on MTA land, but the majority of community gardens are Parks Department or city-owned property.
Do have other communities? No, I'm sure that they have. So I'm asking this in the affirmative. What other communities outside of New York have reached out to you um, for advice, for consultation? How is the work that you're doing extending? How is
Mhm.
it blossoming? How is it growing?
Well, I don't know how people find me, because I didn't think that my work was that extensive. It's so
You're all over the internet.
it's so New York centric, but we've spoken to well, the Connecticut folks are the most recent. I've spoken to Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, New York Botanic Gardens, um, different you know, um, conferences like Plantorama I recently spoke to. Freedom has a conference that I will have a workshop at from time to time. Recently, we spoke to a WARP group that had a number of community gardens within the US and Canada. Um, I've spoken to the American Community Garden Association nationally. They have community gardens attached to them all over. The Denver Urban Garden folks, they have 200 community gardens. They want to know how we do this work. And part of my work also is around data collection, because I think it is important for community gardens to talk about, find a way to capture the data around the work that they do,
So
measure
that,
measure
that's
the impact of their work. So
that's where your corporate background comes in.
it comes in because if you can't advocate for your work with numbers, because that's how corporations think. Where are the numbers? Yeah, you're doing good work, but where are the numbers? So if you can't demonstrate with metrics that this is the impact of my work, we have 3,000 community volunteer hours each year. We grow 10,000. We have given away 10,000 pounds of food each year. So I work to build open source, or we are working to upgrade an open source data collection toolkit that will allow community gardens to continue to measure the impact of their work. You can check it out. It's it's farmingconcrete.org. It's been around for a while. A bunch of us, worked with an organization to put this toolkit, this platform together. And we think it is a great resource that we should continue to upgrade and use. So that work is important to me, as well as people will just ask me about my model, the model of work that I do, which is a model that I believe in around the collective stewardship of land, as opposed to individual ownership of a plot. Yeah,
Are you,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, are you finding it difficult to talk to people about collective as opposed to individual?
No, not the people that I have talked to. They find, because no, not the people that I have talked to. It's something that I don't think that they will jump at, because they have been so steeped in this model of
Mm-hmm.
membership. You pay membership dues, and people have a plot of land. And that's another thing here. Nobody pays membership dues. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
given the community that we live in, I think it is like an onerous financial burden to ask somebody to pay for a membership due for a plot of land that they don't even own. I mean, that's just me. I'm not criticizing anybody else's model, because I don't know what the environment is that they are in that allows them to continue to ask for
But
members.
your application is specific to your community.
Yes, my application is specific to my community. I do not believe in individual plots. I believe in the collective stewardship of the land, which gives you carte blanche to participate in any programming that we have on the land. And when you want food, whatever is growing in the garden, you come and you harvest. My only requirement, at least our only requirement, is that scale that you see. Just weigh the food that you harvest, and it's a way of us measuring our impact. Because when we go to a funder, or when we talk about, when we want to measure the impact, say, we harvested this amount of food this season from our community members. That's all, and it works. We do the same at New Roots. We grow food collectively. We have long beds. We don't have individual beds, and we come together and we talk about what do we want to grow this year, and it's based on the cultural relevance, because we have a multitude of ethnicities within our garden. So we look at cultural relevance of food. We look at what people ask for when they come to our free market and our farmers market on Saturdays, and what experiments we want to try this year, because climate change is real. Can we grow that crop because it's a little warmer this year? And when we collectively decide what we want to grow, then when it is ready for harvest, everybody can harvest. If you don't know how to harvest, we'll help you to harvest.
Did you start at Kelly Street in 2017?
2016.
2016. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is your 8th year there.
My 8th year here. Yeah.
Okay, so from year 1 to year 8, you can see growth and development.
Oh yeah. I mean, in my first year, we harvested 600 pounds of food. This last year, we harvested almost 2,000 pounds of food.
Okay.
Yeah. So so that alone, measuring that metric is astronomical. The growth of how much food we grow in this little space.
How large is the space?
It's 8,000 square feet, but we garden on 3,000 square feet. That's it. Yeah.
It's 8,000, but
we garden. The raised beds take up 3,000 square feet, because we have a seating area, we have a community room, we have alleyways with benches and tables where we do workshops. We do composting, because we collect food scraps from the community to make our own compost.
Okay. Well, when I come back home, I'm coming to see you.
You have to come see me.
Definitely coming to see you, because that is the whole notion, that you can build collectives among poor people.
Oh, please, of course, yeah.
Is a notion that out here in the Midwest is foreign. People don't understand that yet, but it hasn't been applied in ways that the people can grab hold of it. So I want
to encourage you both, if you can find this film, to watch The Decade of Fire. It's about the Bronx. And it's about what people like to call the Bronx is burning during that decade. But what I learned from that film, and part of my education around moving and living in the Bronx, is how resilient people were, how people who stayed in the community. They were housing activists. A lot of them lived on Kelly Street. Kelly Street is kind of like where I live, ground zero for all of this activism. The community gardens that you see in the Bronx are a result of people reclaiming those rubble, garbage-strewn lots after the buildings burned down and turning them into vibrant, beautiful green spaces. And the reason why you see the acceleration of gentrification, I believe, in the Bronx is because of the decades of the people who stayed in the Bronx and rebuilt their community. That's resilience, and that is community, and that is the poor. That is from people who were marginalized and disenfranchised and under-resourced, simply because they were Black, brown, or indigenous. And that's a fact, and redlined. So to tell me that poor people, and we like to criticize, categorize us as poor people, no, we were under-resourced and marginalized.
Hmm.
You know, we were not given the opportunities like other communities to develop, but yet still,
You
as
took it.
Maya Angelou says, we rise.
Yes.
So don't tell me that we can't come together as a community and build as a community. I see it every day in the Bronx.
Yes. You weren't given the resources,
No,
but you took them.
yes, exactly,
Took
exactly.
them. That's Maroon mindset.
And the fund and it's through our collective mindset that we also raise the funding to be able to
Mhm.
steward and sustain this garden. You know, we reach out to these partners, we reach out to these funders, and we say this is the work that we do, and in order to sustain this work, we require funding.
Looking forward, looking forward into the next 8 years. What do you want to see at Kelly Street?
I, as I get honestly, I want more of the community to take over. I want to be able to. I would like to be that person who steps away
Mhm.
from being the resident garden manager and having just community manage this. And you know, I will help to raise funding for the project because I think funding is one of these hard things for any organization to do. You
Yeah.
know, so since we have been doing it for 8 years, it's something I would continue to help, you know, from the sidelines and do. But as I get older, I want somebody younger to take this over.
Okay.
That's just the bottom line. You know,
So, are you growing that person?
I am. I have somebody in mind already. I have
Uh,
many people in mind that I feel like, oh yeah, you can do this.
okay.
You can do this.
And they know that you have them in
I already said that.
Kelsey, Kelsey, do you have any other questions for our food justice advocate here? Our
Well, you
food
just
justice.
referenced, right, the next generation and young people continuing the work. And kind of just to maybe end with a full circle back to your youth, right? In the last webinar, right, Sachs passed on to us your quote, right, about how you left Jamaica to pursue business and how your mother says it's ironic that you
Yes.
returned to what you spent so much time running away from. And so if you could just, I think, speak to that a little bit. And I know I can personally relate to this, again, not even from Jamaica, but a rural area as well, and coming to that realization myself. So I think if you just want to speak to this full circle that you've had and how you see that potentially, how you see that playing out with other youths who are, or youth over 40-year-old women similar to yourself getting involved with these communities and
I,
the significance of that.
I would encourage them to do that because I feel like, you know, as much as the corporate environment for me was very toxic and not that journey was not a good one for me, there are resources or a wealth of knowledge that I got that was applicable to this work that I do. So one of the things in our communities that we lack is a way to make our projects sustainable. We want young people to be doing this work. I have met so many young people that are in this work that I'm just blown away, way. But I know how difficult it is for us to sustain this particular type of work. If people like me who come to this work like me have that knowledge, they need that knowledge. They need that help to be able to sustain these projects. And yeah, everybody should return to the source. Everybody should. You know, I mean, it's like a learning. It's like holistic. It's like a learning cycle. You know, you start somewhere, you run away from it, and then you realize that thing that you started with is where you really should be. So that's all I have to say to that. I would not. I have no interest in going back to that. I would not give this up
Hmm.
for the work. It has been so sustaining for me and so rich for me. And I have met the most wonderful people in this movement that are really, really deeply dedicated to making the planet a better place. And these are the people I want to be around with I leave this earth.
Wonderful. I have two questions, two end the conversations questions. The first one is these core concepts are central to our work with proven sustainable. Sustainability, endurance, resilience, freedom, resistance, sovereignty, and reparations.
Mm-hmm.
Which of these seven sit with you?
Sovereignty and reparations.
Talk to me about sovereignty.
Sovereignty is connected for me, sovereignty is connected to your liberation. You know, you need to be sovereign over your life. You need to be sovereign over the direction of your life. It frees you from oppression. If you think when you think about food sovereignty, if your food supply is controlled by others, then your life is controlled by others. You need to be able to have the ability to grow your own food. You need to have the ability to grow your own food on land that the earth provides for you. You need to have the ability to grow the type of food that you want to grow. It must be culturally relevant. You need to have the ability to prepare the food the way you want to prepare it and share it with whoever you want to share it with. You need to have the ability to be able to distribute that food to whoever you want to distribute it to. You know, so the whole reparations part of it comes from them stealing our labor and stealing our time. They need to and because we have me and you, we have already lost that labor and time. They need to make sure that the future generations get that, are able to use their labor and their time for the things that actualize them and their community. And I'm not talking about self-actualization only for me, because that's a selfish capitalistic notion. It needs actualization for your community and the planet, for us to evolve to a different paradigm. So therefore, as what Maxine Waters said, I want to reclaim my time. That's the reparations, and I want sovereignty. I want my own liberation. I don't want you telling me what to do with my body, and and taking away how I travel through the earth to the end of my life. Because that's what oppression is all about. You know, that's what apartheid is all about. You know, that's what colonialism is all about. Other people telling us. I mean, because we're in a colonial food system. I go to the supermarket and I have to buy what you tell me to buy, and a lot of it is crap.
Say it again. Say it again. So the conversation is always about we and about the collective.
Yes.
And last question. Have you written about your life?
I'm not a good writer. I'm not a good writer. I'm not a good writer. I'm a good reader.
Are there any poets, authors in the community who could put the story together?
I know a lot of poets in the community. I know a lot of poets. I think of one right now that I love her work. She was a community member. But I've never approached any of them. I just like their work.
One of the ways that we move the conversation and the mindset beyond individuation is through telling stories about we and the collective. And your story is clearly a we story. It's a we story. It's not something, well, I sat down and I put together this plan while I was in Flatbush to know that yours was clearly an organic story that has developed to the point that it's at. And young people need to understand that life is an organic process. Just like growing food, life is an organic process, and moving through the organic stages of that process as you develop as the ground develops, as the food that comes from the ground develops. That's what the story is. People need to know your story. I'm just gonna leave you with that. And when I come to Brooklyn, come to the Bronx, I'm gonna talk to you about that. That is important.
Okay. I'm looking forward to that actually.
All right. All right.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to
Thank
that.
you.
Sure.
Thank you so
No,
much, Sheryll Durrant. It has been an absolute pleasure being with you for this short amount of time
it
and
was
to
lovely.
learn from you and to share your story. We here at Proven Sustainable are forever grateful.
We hope you found this conversation insightful and thought-provoking. Please like and follow the Proven Sustainable podcast to spread the word and stay tuned for more engaging dialogues. Additional information and resources are available within the episode description and online at provensustainable.org.